moving right along, Lucy Prince Day update. That's where we have, well, I guess all four of you.
Yeah, well, we did a heck of a lot of work, our impromptu committee, so to speak. It started with one or two people, and then we had a lot of great people helping us. I wanted to start first by publicly thanking Avis and Jim, Rose, Susan, I may be missing somebody, but they're the key people that have done a great deal of work looking to locate where Lucy Terry Prince and her family lived here in town. Most of you may know the story. I won't go into too much detail, but this is the 200th anniversary of her death, July 11th of this year. She's known as the first African-American published poet and lived about the last 20-25 years of her life here in town with her children. And there's a lot more to it, as I said, but it had never really been determined where she lived. It was mostly, well, somewhere off of Hill Farm Road. And through the hard work of everyone I mentioned, we are, what, 99, almost 100, maybe 100% sure that we know where it is, which is a big undertaking because there may, I don't know if you know about the book called Mr. and Mrs. Prince, how an extraordinary 18th century family moved out of slavery into legend. And it's a professor, I'm not sure which college, but Gretchen Gerzina wrote this maybe 10 years ago or so, and did a lot of research herself, but could never really tell exactly where Lucy lived. Unfortunately, we still don't know where she died, or I'm sorry, where she was buried. We know she died here, but we don't know where she's buried. That may always be a mystery, but in any event, the fact that we have a famous person that accomplished a great deal in her life and overcame a lot of obvious obstacles to do it is pretty exciting. So we've been thinking about doing a brief Lucy Prince Day maybe, or a ceremony. Ideally it would be July 11th. I know that's coming up quick. Again, it doesn't have to be anything big and elaborate, but we can discuss it more or come back to you with some of our ideas. Guilford is doing something too, because in Guilford, Vermont is where she spent an even larger amount of her and her husband's life down there. And they're also doing something big. Well, we think it's big. We've sort of lost contact with them a little bit. We've tried, but Andrew and I, and then, by the way, Andrew's done a great deal of work on this too, so I appreciate his help and also publicizing it now with GNAT. But the other thing I'll mention is that a state marker now is going up down at exit 1 of 91 at the Visitor Center to commemorate her life in Guilford, but good news, they've already basically approved us to get one. The reason I say it that way is because, as Jim knows, being instrumental in getting the Chiselville Bridge marker put in, it can be a lengthy process with a lot of selling your idea to the state. But in this case, when I called the woman in charge of the markers, says, I was waiting for somebody from, I was waiting for you to call. I had heard you were interested in this. The good news is that you're going to be approved because of a lot of the work they did down there in Guilford about who she was and what was her life all about, and her children and her husband. So that's the good news. In terms of a location, Andrew, Avis, Jim, and I looked this morning. We have a tentative one that we would like to propose, which would be directly across from Hill Farm Inn. As you just come over the bridge, it's right there would be good because, as I mentioned, the location that we've come up with, and I'll let Jim and Avis go into more detail. Yeah, that'll be good because this is the only one I have. Well, unless you want to show them this, I marked it a little bit too, so they can get.
I'll show them this other one, and then.
Okay. Yeah, so they get their bearings. Onduo Road is where we see it near the end, up near the camp.
Oh.
Yeah, that's where we're thinking the site would be, the home site, but obviously a marker up in that neck of the woods, nobody's going to see it except neighbors. So having it out there, and the other thing
You got
being,
one
the
on there.
state
You
told me
can have it on
that you have to have a location for the site where people can stop their cars safely and/or park them. So that, narrowed down a lot. Nowhere on Sunderland Hill, if we wanted it up near, down at Ennis's house. It's up a little north of her house. And we thought, well, Hill Farm might like it. There's a little bit of a stopping and, oh, you've got an inn here and maybe I'll stay there or something, you never know. And Rose, I was going to ask you if you know whose land that would be, not, on this side of Ondawa, that one little grassy,
There's a well cover there.
yeah.
But not
An
a
old
house.
well.
I'd have to.
Yeah,
I
check
know
on
it was
that.
right before it, it's, the Brandon Smith and.
Is what?
Brandon Smith is right before it, can't think of his wife's name.
On the right.
On the same side as Ondawa, it's across the street.
No,
okay.
it's on the
No,
same
no,
side
Same
as
side as
Ondawa.
Ondawa.
Yeah.
Turn
Yes.
in, take the,
Go over
left.
the bridge, yeah.
onto Hill Farm Road from Sunderland Hill,
Mhm.
and it would be on the right, before you get to Ondawa.
Okay, yeah, no,
Right on the
their driveway's
corner.
right before the Ondawa driveway,
Okay.
so,
I don't know.
no, I'm not sure who that is.
Yeah, well, that's something we can look at and see. The sign itself, from Jim's work, it's a big sign, and you can put 365 characters on one side and the other, and they don't have to be the same. So if you wanted to tell a long story, one side has one story, the other side has the other story, or the rest of the story. So, that's pretty much it. As I said, are we being overly ambitious to try to get something July 11th? Nothing huge. I mean, by the way, the state reps have been involved. Seth, Kathy, Dave, and then Sarah Coffey down in Guilford has also been involved with this, wanting to keep, abreast of it, giving us some ideas about who to talk to with the markers, things like that. So, a little PR maybe for Sunderland and, getting some media coverage. As you know, we were the first to do the proclamation. The state then piggybacked on ours and did a resolution up in Montpelier before they adjourned for the session. So that was exciting and good news too. Maybe before Jim and Avis talk a little bit more, things that I thought about would possibly be at a ceremony, and I was thinking, Rose, a ceremony probably here, right? There's really either indoors or out, nowhere else where people could park, but a brief biographical reading about Lucy and her family, and again, not lengthy but brief, a reading of the poem that the first published poem by an African American in America called Bars Fight, which John knows about. I think all you may know about a Native American raid on some settlers in Massachusetts. There's a woman, an actress, poet, person down in Shanta is her first name. I can't remember. Do you remember her last name?
Gardner?
Yeah.
Gardner.
Gardner. Down in Brattleboro, who has done reenactments in the Brattleboro area in 2017, marking Lucy Prince Day down there in their neck of the woods. She, wears the garb of the day. She is an African-American woman, and she might, although she doesn't think she can make it, she was going to try to work her schedule, come up and do a reading of it. Andrew met with the school, 5th and 6th grade teachers, and they did student poems, which was a great thing. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at some of those. There's some great budding poets in our town. I think, maybe have a couple of the students read their poems. And then, we can announce the marker. By the way, the marker wouldn't be available for about 9 months. So maybe we dedicate it in another ceremony next year. And Avis will mention another exciting possibility that we're thinking of doing. The last thing would be maybe planting a tree, again, with the permission of, or we could even do it here with a little plaque or something in the town hall ground. So, a few things that we're kicking around, and we'll keep you guys abreast. Any ideas that you may have if you've ever been to any ceremonies and say, yeah, that happened and it was kind of neat, kind of interesting, please let me know. So